Thank you so much, Secretariat. The Governor, who happens to be Registrar of Financial Institutions, you may take your seat and your team. All right. Secretariat, you may consider to usher in media because we don't want, in the end, people to think we're closing media. So we'll not proceed as a committee, as Public Accounts Committee, up until media is inside. Secretariat, can you please ask media to come in? Because I don't want to be misquoted again. There's nothing to hide. Malawians just want nothing but the truth. Can we have media team members, those who are outside, ask your colleagues to come in. Let them come. At least now we have some colleagues from media. Let me ask those who are from different media houses to call your friends that the meeting is about to start, because on Saturday we are reflected, and I don't want that to affect the integrity of this committee. So once again, welcome the Reserve Bank Governor, who happens to be the Registrar of Financial Institutions. So you are here in your duties as a governor, as well as the Registrar. But for the sake of the issue at hand, you specifically handle or focus on your role as the Registrar. Thank you so much that you've appeared before this committee on an inquiry regarding the transaction which happened pertaining to the purchase of Amaryllis Hotel. The controlling officer, take note that the key issues that this committee asked you to attend to, compliance with the pension fund and financial regulations in undertaking the hotel acquisition, adequacy of due diligence and risk assessment conducted prior to the investment, approval processes, and whether RBM granted or was required to grant regulatory consent, oversight during the transition between the old and new boards of trustees. This committee also like to be given fresh information on monitoring of governance standards and fiduciary responsibilities of trustees. You will recall that this committee, Public Accounts Committee, yesterday through the clerk of Parliament asked for more information as you'll be appearing in relation of today's engagement. It was in the view of Public Accounts Committee that on top of what we had requested earlier on, you as the controlling officer to give this committee an update on the specific bank accounts through which the Public Service Pension Trust Fund processed the deposit paid to Yusuf Investment Limited for the purchase of Amaryllis Hotel, And the second issue which this committee requested yesterday to you as a controlling officer or as the registrar of financial institutions is an account of the total amount paid to date, as well as clarifications on which fund manager executed the disinvestment and the transaction. So this was just to top up on the earlier issues which we requested you as a registrar of financial institutions to give this committee. We will proceed in this way. Other members will introduce themselves. After that, we'll ask Secretariat, then media, then you will introduce yourself and your members. Thereafter, you will take an oath. This is to make sure that everyone has comfort in the information that you're giving to the committee. In pursuant to Standing Order 151, the Public Accounts Committee, like any other committees of the House, has several powers. And one of the powers is to summon or subpoena any person to attend and give evidence before a committee at a stated time and place, like what we've done. And the second one of the many is to require any person to disclose and produce to the committee any papers and records in that person's control, possession, and custody relevant to the committee's proceeding. As a registrar of financial institution, this committee has deep-felt belief that you have all those documents and would like to have formal submission from you. Other members, can I have introductions from my far right?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fisiani Barnett Nyondo. I represent the great people of Chitipa Central Constituency. Thank you.
Chair, through you, my name is Aline Mambala, Member of Parliament for Balaka Mulongos. Thank you.
Chair, through you, I am Young Pir, representing Lilongwe East. Thank you.
Chair, and all my seniors, I'm Patriciani Kariat, Mulanje West.
Through you, Chairperson, I'm Buka Matemvu, representing the people of Mulanje Southeast constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Governor. My name is Vua Kaunda, MP from Ngatabe Central, member of the committee. Thank you, sir.
Through you, Honorable Chairperson, my name is Santiago Samson Piri, Member of Parliament for Mulanje South constituency and a member of Public Accounts Committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Macpherson Mwaindalama, representing the people of Chiladzulu Nyungwi. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, my name is Geoffrey Onsewa, MP for Chikwawa North. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, my name is Lawrence Chakakala Chazia, Lilongwe Chilobwe constituency.
Chairperson, I'm Gerard Kapisani Piri on behalf of the people of Sagama Central.
Chair, I'm George Katunga Million, Palombe Machemba. Thank you.
Chair, good morning once again. My name is Gerard Dasaugadala, representing the people of Luntha Central constituency. Thank you, Chair.
My name is Best Ben, our Member of Parliament for Zomba City North. Thank you, Chair.
And I'm Amina Gajia, representing Zomba Sundole.
Through Chair, my name is Noel Olipipa, Member of Parliament for Blantyre City, Chilomoni, Kabula, and Choli constituency.
Through you, Honorable Chairperson, I'm Nevin Carter, Clerk to the committee. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I am Judith Sikalo Kakalea, Parliament Secretariat. Thank you.
Through you, Honorable Chair, Chile Likoma, Legal Services. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, good morning. I'm Sangwani Piri, Parliament Secretariat. Thank you.
Can I have media quickly? Let's just line up to in the interest of time. So you can have one mic and do the needful. Media, please.
Through you, Chair, honorable members, my name is Nshindi Meki from Nation Publications Limited.
And I'm Rachel Julaye for Zodiac.
Trust Office, MBC.
Gideon Gayara from Luntha Television.
And I'm Mwezi Gausi from Times.
My name is Innocent Manda from Malawi News Agency, Mana.
Chair Kashipeta from Linga FM Radio.
Ongani Philbert from Kuma FM.
Alison Banda, Luntha TV.
Pempaboda, Zodiac.
Kumbo Kaliu from Times.
Thank you so much, media. Vice Chair.
Through you, Chair. My name is Eisenhower Mkaka, representing the people of Lilongwe Mpeno and sitting in as Vice Chair.
Honor members and controlling officer, my name is Stephen Baba Malondera Kansiamo. I'm an MP for Lilongwe Nyanja constituency and chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. Over to you, controlling officer, to introduce yourself, and the members can do the same. Over to you, controlling officer.
Thank you, Chair. My name is George Partridge. I am Governor and Registrar of Financial Institutions. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Sopani Gondwe. I'm the Director for Financial Sector Regulation Department. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. My name is Kaluso Chihana. I'm the Director for Pension and Insurance Supervision. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, my name is Agnes Sentala and I'm Director, Pension Compliance and Support. Thank you.
Through Chair and honorable members of the committee, my name is George Chuoza. I'm General Counsel and Bank Secretary for RBM. Thank you.
Through you, Chair and honorable members, my name is Boston Banda. I'm a Director in the Governor's Office responsible for public relations. Thank you.
Good morning, through Chair. My name is Lawrence Sheriff. I'm Chief Examiner Legal in the Financial Sector Regulation Department.
Good morning, through you, Chair. I'm Naija Bosi. I'm Chief Examiner for life insurance and pension funds. Thank you.
Through your Chair, I'm Grace Msosa, Chief Examiner, Pension and Insurance Regulation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Secretariat, can you proceed to administer oath? The Registrar of Financial Institutions, you can just encourage those who are going to speak in this discussion to take an oath. Those who are not going to speak, then they cannot take an oath. Over to you.
I, George Partridge, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Kaluso Chihana, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Sopani Gondwe, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Agnes Sentala, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, George Chuoza, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Lawrence Sheriff, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I, Naya Jangosi, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth. So help me God.
I, Grace Msosa, do solemnly swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you so much, Secretariat, for administering the oath. To you, the Registrar of Financial Institutions, I would like once again to welcome you because today, Public Accounts Committee is interfacing with a great son of this nation. Your name is a name that you've built over the years, and we are honored that such a distinguished son of the soil is appealing to this committee. As we proceed, kindly take congratulations from the Public Accounts Committee. Your committee feels honored that you have been tasked to take charge of the affairs of the Reserve Bank, as well as in your capacity as Registrar of Financial Institutions. It is our deep-felt belief that you work with the nation as we take into the details of actually what happened. Because there's a saying that no oppression is so heavy or lasting, that is which is inflicted by the perversion of legal authority. So legally you're mandated to do this, and we're just expecting the best from your presentation. Like what I indicated earlier on, our submission, having had all that happened, Malawians would like to find out as to the actual specific bank accounts through which the Public Service Pension Trust Fund processed the deposits paid to Yusuf Investment Limited to the purchase of Amaryllis Hotel, and they are also eager to know an account of the total amount paid to date, as well as clarification on which fund managers executed the disinvestment in the transaction. Reaching this far, let me hand over to you for your presentation. When you're done with your presentation, honorable members will ask questions. When you're responding to honorable members, kindly address them by the constituency they represent, because they are here as mandated by the Constitution to provide their oversight role, which is one of the roles of a member of parliament, having won in their constituency as representatives of the people. So we will recognize them as such. At this time, allow me to hand over to you, the Registrar of Financial Institutions. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, colleagues from the Reserve Bank, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank you for the compliments and also the congratulatory message. I am deeply humbled. Chair, in your preamble, you indicated the things that are to be covered. I can assure you that by the end of the presentation, most, if not all, the things that you said at the preamble are going to be covered. With your permission, Chair, the format of our presentation is that I will make an opening statement first, and my team, led by Director responsible for pensions, assisted by the Director responsible for financial regulation, that is Kaluso Chihana and Sopani Gondwe, will make a PowerPoint presentation. So, Honorable Chair, good morning once again, and allow me to begin my remarks this morning by thanking you and the honorable members of your committee for inviting me in my capacity as Registrar of Financial Institutions to appear before the committee to address you on my office's engagement with the Public Service Pension Trust Fund, specifically regarding the process and the conduct of the Board of Trustees in the course of the acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel. Chair, I'm fully cognizant of the importance of this matter to your committee, to the Public Service Pension Trust Fund, to its members, and to Malawians at large. We are duty-bound by statute to ensure that the interests of all stakeholders are protected. Chair, you may be aware that in 2010, Parliament enacted the Financial Services Act as amended in 2025, which is the primary legislation where I derive my mandate as Registrar of Financial Institutions. We are mandated, among other responsibilities, to promote the safety and soundness of financial institutions, the highest standards of conduct of business by financial institutions, the reduction and deterrence of financial crime in financial institutions, the protection of consumers of financial services and its products, and the stability of the financial system as a whole. We are tasked, Honorable Chair, to oversee the regulation and supervision of all financial institutions in Malawi, which include banks, insurance companies, pension entities, microfinance institutions, financial cooperatives, capital market players, and others. To achieve this mandate, we carry out various activities and processes that include off-site surveillance, or what we call desktop examinations, where the financial institutions themselves submit regular information to us on a periodic basis. We also visit the institutions to kick the tires, so to speak, through what we call an on-site examination or inspection, in which we have the opportunity to interface with the board and management of the institutions. It is, Chair, in keeping with this mandate that we also supervise and regulate the Public Service Pension Trust Fund through regular desktop as well as on-site examinations. The last comprehensive on-site examination was in July-August 2025. The Public Service Pension Trust Fund is one of the 33 pension funds that we regulate and supervise in the pension industry. The pension fund, having been established in 2018, is one of the fastest growing pension funds on the market. And within a space of 8 years of its establishment, it has already grown to be the third largest pension fund in the country. It is therefore classified as a systemically important fund, meaning that its failure can have far-reaching consequences, not only to its members, but to the financial system as a whole. I must mention, Chair, that prior to the recent developments, the pension fund had been managed by a succession of 2 cohorts of Board of Trustees. The current board is the third in that line. The board began from inception, managed to set a sound platform for the pension fund, which allowed it to grow from strength to strength. While the pension fund broadly complied with the requirements, the major challenges included failure by the employer, that is the Malay government, to timely remit pension contributions, failure by the pension fund to have audited accounts for a number of years, and erratic governance. These are the key compliance issues that we have been engaging with the pension fund for some time, and engagements continue to date. Now I come to the specific Amaryllis transaction, the transaction that we are here for, but I just wanted to give you the background. At the last on-site examination, we noted through various documentation that was availed to us that the pension fund exercised its mind on the possibility of acquiring the Amaryllis Hotel. The previous boards engaged a number of service providers to assist in the assessment of the viability of the hotel as a going concern. Going through the board minutes, various documents, and also actual conversations with the Secretariat, it was made quite clear to my office that the board was not in support of the transaction. Having established that, my office did not therefore pursue the transaction, as there was no need, since the board itself at that examination had resolved not to pursue the transaction. Following the expiry of the mandate of the board around September 2024, the pension fund operated without a board until September to October 2025. Partly, this was caused by the fact that the appointing authority withdrew the names of trustees that were to replace the board for reasons that are beyond us. Thus, when we visited the institution in August 2025, the Secretariat officials confirmed to our team of the position of withdrawing from the transaction. It was therefore surprising that on meeting the new board, later on it expressed renewed interest in the transaction. At this time, Chair, my office simply advised the pension fund to ensure that they follow a due diligence process before making any investment decisions. Due diligence here included financial viability and not breaking the pension law on investments pertaining to life insurance and pension funds. It then came to us as a surprise when my office came across information that the fund was progressing with the transaction at a lightning speed and not commensurate with the size and complexity of the transaction. You see, Chair, from the presentation that will be made later on, that reliance of the decision was made by advice from a firm which only spent 1 day on the transaction, and that's why we described it as a lightning speed. It was against this background that my office decided to intervene in the matter by immediately issuing a direction to stop the transaction. Specific chronology of events and other details will be provided in the detailed presentation, Chair. Honorable Chair, I was appointed Governor and therefore Registrar of Financial Institutions on 23rd January this year, and I was confirmed by the Public Appointments Committee on 9th February. What I have been describing here are briefings and documentations provided by my staff and my understanding of what happened while I was not there. With these briefings, Honorable Chair, and subsequent events, my involvement has been to deal with consequence management of the disobedience as a result of the breach of investment laws and regulations pertaining to the management of life insurance and pension funds, and the apparent lack of due care, fiduciary responsibilities, and questionable governance conduct. As pointed out, Chair, what transpired thereafter was clearly an act of disobedience where the pension fund trustees decided to go ahead, notwithstanding our directions, and I think almost probably one would say bordering on arrogance. It is therefore in our interest to ensure that we also hear more about the motivation for the trustees to proceed with the transaction, ignoring all the directions that were given by the regulator at the time. Thus, Honorable Chair, on 20th February 2020, that is when I issued my first directive and, among other actions, an order of rescission of the transaction. Chair, we do not take disobedience of our regulations and financial laws lightly, or else you would agree with me that there will be chaos in the system. My office has therefore since moved to impose administrative penalties on the trustees as provided by law and issued direction for the trustees to once again rescind the transaction. Meanwhile, we have engaged the Financial Intelligence Authority to follow the money, investigate the transactions for possible commission of financial crimes. We have asked National Bank and CDH Bank to reverse the transactions, regard the loans as unpaid, and quarantine the proceeds until the process is over. It is also our understanding that FIA, that's the Financial Intelligence Authority, has already frozen some of the funds connected to the transaction, details of which will be provided in the presentation by the Director of Pensions. If we do not receive satisfactory feedback to some of the correspondence to the trustees after due notice, we will impose extra sanctions as provided for in the law. The powers that are vested in us, they include a declaration that the trustees are not fit and proper persons to run a fund, and that the trustees may be referred to prosecutorial agencies for possible financial crimes. And of course, we will revoke their licenses. Chair, with your permission, I will therefore request my team to proceed with the presentation before we can take questions from honorable members of the committee. I submit, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Registrar of Financial Institutions. On behalf of Public Accounts Committee, would like to assure you that we are available anytime, and the route that we've taken is something which is commendable. And as your committee, we are ready to get more details through the presentation as you've guided. I would like to ask the one to present to take to the floor. Thank you so much, Registrar of Financial Institutions.
Through you, Honorable Chair and honorable members of the committee, allow me to take you through the presentation. Picking up directly, I think, from the comments or the remarks made by the registrar. Our mandate extends indeed to all financial institutions, and our key focus is that we promote the safety and soundness of all financial institutions as they operate. That is very important because a financial institution that is not sound may not be able to meet its obligations when they are needed. The Public Service Pension Trust Fund has members who retire in so many years, and it is very important that as they undertake investments, decisions, they must be made prudently to ensure that the funds grow at a reasonable rate of return, and that will ensure that at the time when members retire, they are able to receive their retirement benefits as and when they fall due as the Pension Act requires. So our role is more of an oversight role as the registrar, and we do this in many ways. I recall, I think the registrar highlighted a number of objectives and activities that we do. But let me just zero in on the fact that, among other things, we also do license trustees. So trustees are licensed, and once they are licensed, they are empowered to run the affairs of the pension fund. Among these is actually the power to make investment decisions. So it's important to emphasize on this because the registrar does not make investment decisions for pension funds, but the investment decisions are made by trustees. But in so doing, our interest is to make sure that these investment decisions follow a due process, a governance process that one can look at as being credible. Trustees are therefore subject to regulatory and supervisory oversight by the registrar. Supervisory is the aspect which the governor covered on, that we do off-site surveillance, but we also do on-site examinations. Regulatory is the licensing aspect. And so our expectation is that trustees will comply with the relevant legislation that is there in place, starting from the Financial Services Act, the Pension Act, and the various directives that the registrar has actually issued for compliance by pension funds as well as the trustees. Being the highest governing body in a pension fund, they must set the standard by making sure that they pay attention to the compliance requirements. And this is a minimum expectation. And so, as part of our ongoing supervision, as the governor alluded, in August, specifically starting from 21st July to 1st August 2025, we scheduled a routine on-site examination of the pension fund. The last on-site examination that we conducted at the Public Service Pension Trust Fund was in 2022. The governor mentioned that there are 33 pension funds. And so for us, to be able to go back to an entity, it means it takes a bit of time because there are other pension funds that we also have to regulate. And so during this examination, and I think we have provided a copy of the on-site report that we did on this, among other issues, one of the major findings that was really key was the fact that we had noted the substantial payments that had been made in the pension fund in the absence of a board, an active or functional board. I think we will be able to provide sufficient detail in terms of what actually happened for the pension fund to appear to be operating without a board from September 2024 to September 2025 or thereabouts. But this issue was a concern to us because ordinarily they would have been expecting that these payments that were to be made would ordinarily be approved by a board, but they were being done under the stroke of the pen by the principal officer. So, and then there were concerns around the governance of the pension fund, obviously because boards were being licensed, but somehow they were not functional. And then there was the communication that we had with the pension fund until when this current board was now in place. So having these issues of concern, because they concerned the principal officer, it was very difficult for us actually at that time to raise that issue of payments with the principal officer. We needed to meet the board. And through our assessments, based on the records that were there, the minutes, and the, also conversations with the Secretariat personnel, the Amaryllis transaction had been considered a number of times. But it was almost conclusive that the boards had reached a point where they were actually withdrawing. They withdrew essentially from the transaction. I think there are minutes of a meeting that was held in June 2024 where this issue was also discussed. So at this point in August, this new board was not yet functional, although it had been already licensed by the registrar in June 2025. We did not discuss, we could not hold, let me take that chair. We could not hold the exit meeting. So once we have done the on-site examination, what is involved is we go on-site to the entity and we meet the respective personnel, we get documentation, we go through them. Once we have concluded, we come up with a report, and that report we submitted to the board, and then we hold an exit meeting where we discuss these issues. Now, we could not hold this exit meeting with the principal office. That's why we scheduled a meeting with the board. I will come back to that. But before we could do that, once we had actually agreed on a date of 5th November, where we're going to exit the examination, on 3rd November, we received whistleblowing information on allegations that there were governance lapses on the acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel. The information pointed to the fact that the board chair had actually presented, I think he has a legal background, he had presented to the board the threat, the legal threat that was there, that the Use of Investments Limited were going to sue I think apparently there was a meeting on the 2nd October 2025 that took place where these issues were discussed. And at that meeting, it would appear there was a resolution that the pension fund must seek legal opinion on the issue. And that legal opinion was sought. And in conclusion, the opinion gave the pension fund an 80% chance of actually winning the case. However, on the 25th October 2025, there was an extraordinary meeting of the board where a number of resolutions were made. The suspension of the principal officer, the previous principal officer, the secondment of a new PO, principal officer, and also that there was an authorization of acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel, and that the investment committee had been assigned to map the way forward. Chair, at this point, we still revert to the fact that the mandate of making investment decision lies with the board. And at that point, when we received this information, our interest was to understand how the due diligence processes were going to proceed from there on. And based on the information that had been shared and also what we have received subsequently, we could not establish whether the board, in making their decision, they considered this legal opinion that was actually sought. And so what we did was we arranged to obtain more information, to meet with the whistleblower. We continued to review the information. And the whistleblowing information at this point did not disclose a price, or that there was something or anything that had been negotiated at this stage. So there was nothing necessarily what we would call alarming at this point, because we expected the pension fund to fulfill its mandate of making investment decisions in a due manner. And so when we were holding the exit meeting on the 5th, with the new board, we could not discuss the issues that the whistleblower had provided to us because it was still fresh and we were still digesting and analyzing the information. We focused on the issues that the examination had actually assessed. But among the issues that the board advised us in that meeting was that there was renewed interest in the acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel. And because of that, we did advise them in that meeting that we expect you to follow a due diligence process. And by this, I think the issues that have actually been highlighted in terms of when you look at the due diligence process, if you look at the processes that had been conducted by other investment managers that were involved in the process, that is the sort of process that we were expecting would happen. So we went back to base to prepare our on-site report and also continued, obviously, to analyze the information from the whistleblowing. On 14th November, we received further whistleblowing information. And in this information, there was an allegation that the process is moving at a very fast pace. Just to highlight, based on the information that we received, on 11th November, the pension fund finalized the procurement process. On the 12th, they held contract negotiations with the the consultant, and on the 14th, the consultant produced a report. And in there, it was showing a price range between 115 billion kwacha and 145 billion kwacha. That's the range which the consultant actually indicated. And there was also information that the investments committee and the board, I think the board will meet on the 19th of November. But prior to that, there may also be a meeting for the investments committee. So when we received this information, we were, I would say, maybe shocked to discover what is going on. And this was on the 14th, late afternoon. I think I should just say in the afternoon. And so immediately, we engaged internally and agreed to issue a restriction, a direction to stop the transaction because we were concerned. Why were we concerned, Chair? Is because when we looked at the amounts that were being mentioned and we take into account the investment profile of the pension fund, it was clear to us that if this investment was going to proceed, which was going to be an acquisition of an unlisted equity, it would have meant that the pension fund was going to breach our directives, which set prudential limits on investments for pension funds. As the governor said, we do not take breaches of our regulations lightly. And with this in mind, we immediately, as I said, issued the direction of 14th November. With the information that the pension fund had scheduled a meeting on the 19th, in that letter we also requested for a meeting on the 18th. Because our thinking at that point was that in the meeting of the 18th, we were going to buttress our point to say that do not proceed. Of course, just to highlight that if the investment had also proceeded, for example, in 2023, at 47 billion, at that point, the pension fund had assets totaling 338.4 billion kwacha. It would have meant that this was going to be 21%. The only caveat is that in 2023, we had not yet issued this directive that we're referring to. But clearly, we're still going to be uncomfortable with the level of investment in unlisted equities. So unlisted equities are considered also to be a high-risk investment. So as I mentioned, on 14th November, the Registrar issued a letter to the Public Service Pension Trust Fund Board directing them to hold all the transactions related to the acquisition of Amaryllis Hotel until the direction is either varied or removed. And we did request for a meeting. The pension fund requested for us to change the meeting from the Tuesday to 18th November 2025 to Wednesday, November 19, 2025, which we accepted. And so on the 19th of November, we met them in Salima at Sunbed Livingstonia Hotel because they had already scheduled their own meeting and they requested us to meet them in Salima. At the meeting, Chair, when we inquired about the transaction, we were shocked to learn that the pension fund had actually
signed a sale agreement. Let me underline, Chair, that what surprised us the most was to hear from the chairman that some of the trustees were actually not yet knowledgeable of this fact, that the sale agreement had been signed, meaning that some of the trustees actually got to know about the signing of the sale agreement at the same time as we were learning. This to us signaled problems in terms of governance. And so we requested, beyond that, that the board should submit documentation relating to the decision-making process that they had engaged in considering this. And because we also wanted to confirm whether this had passed through the board decision-making processes which the pension fund has. And I must underline, Chair, that in this meeting, at no point did we insinuate or suggest that the position of the registrar of the letter of 14th November, which was actually signed by the registrar a few days before, that the position had actually changed. The registrar would communicate that sort of decision in writing. Once we requested them to submit this further information, because we really, as I said, we wanted to appreciate what had actually gone on the 24th of November, we received the submission from the board. And we have also shared, we submitted to the Secretariat the information that we had received from the board. On the 11th of November, or I should say a few days prior to that, sorry, Chair, let me take you back to say that on the 19th of November, 2025, when we had met the board, I think it is also the same day that the Malawi Law Society issued a press release. And so there were a number of issues that followed from that. And in December, the Attorney General invited us to a meeting, invited the registrar to a meeting. This meeting was held on the 11th of December 2025, and in attendance was myself, Kaluso Chihana, Director for Pension and Insurance Supervision, Dr. Sopani Gondwe, Director for Financial Sector Regulation, and Director Agnes Central, Director for Pension Compliance Supervision, Compliance and Support. At the meeting, we updated the Attorney General on the registrar's reservations on the transaction, and he did request us to share with him a copy of the analysis report which we were undertaking of the transaction. And this was subsequently shared with him. On the 23rd of December, having now done the assessment, we issued another letter in which we recommended against proceeding with the acquisition based on the information that we had been shared with. And we also directed, in addition to the directions that were still standing on the letter from the 14th of November, that if indeed the board wanted to proceed with the transaction, then they must submit to us a comprehensive justification
of the investment proposal, including the viability and also how member funds would be safeguarded should the board want to proceed with the transaction. Just to underline, our direction of 14th November 2025 was neither varied nor removed. So our expectation at this point is that the board is attending to the issues that we had requested them to. And on 2nd February, they submitted a letter to the registrar. And this submission, in summary, was insisting on the viability of the acquisition based on advice from EMJ Advisory. I must say, Chair, that at the time that we were writing our letter of 23rd December, we had actually done an assessment, a review of the EMJ report. And there are issues that we picked from that analysis. I think key among them is the fact that the financial statements that were used for 2021, 2022, 2023 were audited, but 2024, 2025, they were management accounts. Looking at the process of procurement that happened, the time the contract award was done, at what time did EMJ obtain these management accounts and conduct a thorough analysis that would inform the projections, the appraisal that EMJ had done? We could not be convinced otherwise, Chair. And notably, in this communication, we also noted that the sale transaction had actually been executed by this time, before the registrar could either vary or remove the directions of 14th November and 23rd November. Our expectation was, if the board wanted to proceed, remember in our letter of 23rd, we had indicated that they should submit to us prior to that, they should submit to us a comprehensive report. But this was done. So, on 20th November, just to highlight, Chair, that around this time, we were also transitioning in terms of our leadership. And so we needed time to brief the new registrar and also for him to apprise himself of the issues that we were analyzing and dealing with. After his approval by the Public Appointments Committee, we engaged, and on the 20th of February, the registrar, in line with the sections 39 and 75 of the Financial Services Act, issued a direction to the board, or administrative penalties to the board, to show cause why trustees should not be penalized for not complying with the registrar's directions. In that letter, the registrar also demanded a rescission of the transaction. You appreciate, Chair, we are a public functionary and we must abide by the Constitution, and this is why we would write a show cause letter, because we have to give them an opportunity to be heard. And we gave them 7 days to do that. On the 26th of February, we received a submission from the board And the focus of their submission was to continue with the justification for the viability of the transaction based on the EMJ report. And we did not find this justification sufficient. And in view of the fact that the board had actually not complied with the directions of the registrar and deliberately breached the investment limits, our view also was informed by the fact that the transaction by now had actually been executed even before responding. By the time they were responding to the registrar on 2nd February, by now we had known that apparently, actually, payments had been made. So we did not focus on the justification anymore, and we focused on the non-compliance of the direction. And on the 27th of February, we issued letters to the Financial Intelligence Authority requesting them to follow the funds and freeze the accounts of Yusuf Investments Limited. We also simultaneously issued letters to National Bank and CDH Investment Bank to reverse the transactions and preserve the funds. At this point, we continued to analyze in terms of how we are going to move forward in terms of enforcement. And on the 4th of March, we, based on Section 135 of the Pension Act, the registrar, number one, imposed administrative penalties on trustees. For each one of them individually to pay 40 million kwacha for disobeying the registrar's direction, and this is to be paid within 10 days of receipt of our direction. We also issued an administrative penalty for trustees to rescind the sale agreement within 7 days of receipt of our letter. I would want to highlight that based on the date which we confirmed receipt, for which the pension fund signed for our letter having received it, the 7 days will elapse on 19th of March, 2026, and the 10 days will elapse on the 24th of March, 2026. As I conclude, Chair, in terms of, as an update, based on our engagements, so far what we are aware of is that an amount close to 72.6 billion, beg your pardon, I think that should be billion for the record, we'll correct that, Chair, has been traced in various accounts, and a significant part of that has already either been frozen or preserved. However, due to the fact that there are other ongoing investigations with other authorities, we are unable to provide the details of surrounding the amounts. I believe the Financial Intelligence Authority is also going to appear before the committee. I'm sure they will be better placed to also mention something about this. At this point, Chair, allow me to thank you and your committee for your attention to this presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Director, you may consider going back to your seat in case you want anything else, but I think that will suit you best. Thank you so much, Registrar of Financial Institution. Because of the presentation that you've made through your director on the steps that have been taken, I would like to assure you that as Public Accounts Committee, we have been on top of this. The more reason we also requested for more details yesterday, because we knew that as Public Accounts Committee, few other things were not put into perspective, and they were looking forward to your engagement. Would like to assure you that Financial Intelligence Authority will also appear. I would like to commend the good job that they have done this far, because this committee has been given updates for some time. To that effect, even when the acting director for Anti-Corruption Bureau appeared before this committee, when he had talked of freezing or preserving other accounts, the committee looked at him, because they knew, your committee, Public Accounts, knew what was happening. The more reason the committee did not get into details, because your committee was aware of whatever was happening. The more reason your committee earlier on requested you to protect your integrity and the integrity of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Your committee would like you to do more to what has happened. Before I open to honour members, take note that the Public Accounts Committee is interested in lifestyle audit. As Public Accounts Committee, we will be communicating to your office on officers that Reserve Bank, as a registrar of financial institution, must immediately conduct lifestyle audit. And it is within the wisdom of this Public Accounts Committee that lifestyle auditors must be international, those who are not from within, because this far we have not as a country focused on lifestyle audits. We'll focus too much on financial audits. To that effect, your committee, Public Accounts Committee, is directing you as a Registrar of Financial Institution to immediately commence a process of acquiring or procuring the services of lifestyle auditors, so that all those who are involved, or this committee perceived to have been involved at any stage, to be subjected to lifestyle audit. In that case, we will be pulling in the same direction. At this point, the Registrar of a Financial Institution, who happens to be the Governor of the Reserve Bank, allow me as a Chairperson of Public Accounts Committee to request honour members to ask questions, so that we put all these things into perspective. That said, let me communicate as well that officials from Financial Intelligence Authority shall not appear live or get all the details for the sake of security of officers who have helped us to get to the bottom of this thing. They shall not be disclosed, because we want a nation full of people who are higher integrity. Honour members, I see Vice Chair Lilongwe Mpenu. I see Luntha Chilomoni Kabula. I see Zomba City North. I see Palombe Machemba. I see Salima Central. I see our senior from Nkatabe Central. Honor members, allow me to ask the members to take those 5 questions. Then the Registrar of Financial Institutions will respond. Then we'll come with another round of questions. Over to you, Lilongwe Mpenu.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, having worked in the financial services industry for over 10 years and participating in the financial services through other media, I know that the voice of the registrar in the financial services industry is like the voice of God in the Bible or the Quran. Now, following the presentation by the director, one cannot help but see glaring acts of defiance by the board, which stood on behalf of the fund. My question to the registrar is on the adequacy of the penalty or the penalties that have been meted out to the trustees, looking at the fact that they put lives of thousands of pensioners at risk through this investment in an unlisted equity. And just again to check what has happened at the expiry of the 7 days after you had directed the fund to rescind the process or the sale agreement. I submit, Chairperson.
Thank you, Lilongwe Mpenu. On the same, on penalties, before I go to Luntha Chilomoni, kindly consider attaching percentages going forward, because the monies that we're talking here is a breach of over 128 billion. So if you put a flat rate like the 40 million, it doesn't make sense, because one can decide to misbehave knowing that it's going to take the 40 million out of that and pay. So you can consider the Registrar of Financial Institution to immediately rework on how you arrive at penalties, because this is a key learning moment for this country. So you can have a flat rate that at this rate, then beyond such a rate, please attach a percentage in relation to the amount involved, so that the trustees must stop playing around with the pension fund for the police, for the teachers, and for all those who were born after 1982. Luntha Kabula, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. The Registrar of Financial Institutions clearly indicated that they do regulatory and other supervisory oversight. I am also aware of the restriction notice that they sent. If you look at the entire transaction, the amount of money didn't come in one chunk. There's 19 billion that was paid on the 12th of January 2026. And then there's 28.7 billion that was paid on the 13th of January 2026. And then there is 1 billion that was paid from 13th of January 2026. 13.3 billion was paid on the 14th of January 2026. 15th of January, 3.43 billion was paid. 19th of January, 24.7 billion was paid. So on the total amount of paid was 90 billion, 90.13 billion, of which we should commend you that so far the 72.6 billion has been quarantined. However, Chair, I want to ask the Registrar of Financial Institutions. It clearly appears to me here that the 19 billion that came on the 12th of January actually came from an old mutual account to pension trust fund account, and then the final amount was paid from the Reserve Bank main account. And so was, or so were all the other transactions. It's showing that the Reserve Bank main account was the one that was paying Yusuf investment. Is it wrong, therefore, to conclude that the trustees were actually defiant on some of the regulations and conditions you gave them because somebody inside the Reserve Bank or somebody inside the regulator of financial institutions was actually giving them a nod? And if so, how come the money that was coming through the Reserve Bank account a few weeks later, you are now asking them to stop the sale? Looks like the Reserve Bank is surprised and shocked on one side, but on the other side, the transactions are actually coming from Old Mutual to pension fund account and Reserve Bank and then Yusuf Investment. I submit, Chair.
With such a question coming in, I will not proceed to get to Zomba City North. We give the registrar to respond to this question because this is a very important question because it hinges on the integrity of Reserve Bank. And Reserve Bank operates on trust and integrity, not only local, but you're looking at global positioning. So, controlling officer, the governor, can you take that one before we go to Zomba City North?
Chair, that means I also have to take yours and the one from Lilongwe Mpeni.
That's fine. That's fine. Proceed.
Thank you. I concur with Lilongwe Mpenu in terms of the glaring acts of defiance. The issue of adequacy of penalties, I think these are also a stage-by-stage penalty, but they are also governed by law. But I think what is important going forward is that because we have realized that it may actually be inadequate, then I think what needs to be done is our own regulations can also take that into account in future, because that's the learning lesson that we can get from this particular transaction. The 40 million is inadequate. But in terms of like, is it going to be a relative amount or is it going to be a fixed amount? I think those things are the ones that we can improve upon in our regulation. But also the stage-by-stage approach, because I think we impose the penalties at first, then we have to have the responses, and as the rules of natural justice says, we have to wait until we get the responses. And then when we get the responses, then we impose a second round of penalties. And as we pointed out, that what we are considering is also the revocation of the licenses, the declaration of fit and proper, that these officers are not fit and proper to be on the boards of the the fund, but also reference to prosecutory authorities. So these are the things that we are going to consider depending on what transpires with their responses. And I think the issue also of when are they expiring, I think it is on the 19th. One is expiring on the 19th, and the other one is expiring on the 24th. So we are yet to get the responses. But however, let me point out the issue of the governance issues. We have already started receiving some responses from individual trustees, and most of them are disassociating themselves with the investment, that they never even knew that this was coming. They never even saw the sale agreement. They never even had the opportunity to discuss this investment. So you can see how disconnected or how the governance, in terms of how the governance system works in the trust, in terms of transparency and in terms of collective responsibility of the board. I just wanted to point out that's the preliminary issues that is confirming our earlier assertion that there is a disjointed decision-making process within the board. I think the second issue was from Luntha Kabula, and I may be corrected by my colleagues here. No funds came from the Reserve Bank. It was actually the fund managers who were keeping these funds that were instructed to pay Yusuf Investments. So these funds are Old Mutual, I think FDH, CDH, NICO, and NICO. No, not NICO. But I think the important thing is that this did not come from the Reserve Bank. It came. These transfers originated from their fund managers. I think I'm understanding something. With your permission, I think my colleagues, in terms of exactly where these monies came from, they can speak to it. Thank you.
Please proceed. I have seen Palumbe Machemba and the owner of the question agitating for supplementary. Let them respond, then I give you to supplement. Maybe you may ask what they may respond on to. So, because the Registrar of Financial Institutions has asked colleagues to help him, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you and honorable members, the account which the payments were made into, I think it's we have shared that. I believe you have the account number. This account was actually reflected in the sale agreement as being an account for a transacting account for the pension fund in the sale agreement. But our investigation are indicating that this account could actually belongs to Yusuf Investments Limited. So I wanted to explain how pension funds generally operate. A pension fund, by law, is required to have a custodian. Now, a custodian is the entity, in this case, more commonly, is a bank that holds the assets of the pension fund. So it starts from the funds, which the pension fund is actually collecting, the contributions. When the contributions are made by the employer, those funds, they go to the custodian of the pension fund. And in this case, it is FDH Bank, which is the custodian bank. And under FDH, there will be operating accounts. There will be investment accounts, which will operate under specific service providers. For example, Old Mutual, who were managing, I think, initially I recall they were managing around 50% of the assets of the funds. They would operate an account. They would be the signatories to the account. They would be the ones making investment the trustees make the investment decision, then they instruct the investment manager to transact in that account. So at FDH, there will be an investment account for Old Mutual. There will be an investment account for Continental, and there will be an investment account for Nico. When the board has made a decision, someone from the fund obviously has to issue an instruction to the investment manager. I am looking for a certain amount that I would want to pay for this investment. So it's up to the investment manager to decide where they are going to take those funds from. Some of it could actually be sitting in an investment, for example, a fixed deposit somewhere. There could be funds which the custodian bank is actually holding at that particular point. And so they would issue this instruction. And this instruction, from the records that we have observed, was coming from the acting principal officer. It was signed by the acting principal officer. It would instruct, say, for example, Old Mutual, to pay 19 billion. So what Old Mutual would do is to request for the mandate to do that. So they would request, where is the board resolution? Where is for example, like in this case, they provided the sale agreement and so on and so forth, all the documentation to support that. Because they are operating under an agreement, they are duty bound to make that, because to them, this could be a bona fide transaction. I mean, it has passed through the board in their viewpoint. And so the funds would move either from, if, for example, Old Mutual had negotiated a fixed deposit with, for argument's sake, National Bank. So they would instruct National Bank, we are liquidating this fixed deposit, please pay it into this specific account. But if the funds are with the custodian bank, and the bank does not have sufficient funds on its own, it may actually instruct to say, we would make these payments from our main account. The main account ordinarily is stationed at the Reserve Bank. But there are so many instructions that the banks would issue to the Reserve Bank, and would not know exactly what those payments are for. They would simply say, move funds from our investment account to that particular, our main account, it should go to that particular account. So at that point, the RBM would not know exactly what that money is being paid for. So I suspect that the issue that was brought, that these funds were actually from the Reserve Bank, could have happened in that manner. And I think that's what I can say for now. Thank you, Chair.
There was a supplementary from one of the question, and Palome Majemba, are you still agitating for supplementary? Palome Majemba, you have the floor, Palome Majemba.
Thank you, Chair. Is it a standard practice that when large payments are being made, probably 2 billion and above, that the Reserve Bank is notified or not notified? Thank you, Chair.
Registrar of Financial Institution, as you take that one, I would like to draw your attention to the memo that you wrote concerning the communication which you made on the 23rd December 2025. Why did the Registrar of Financial Institution include the paragraph that stated should the board opt to proceed with the transaction, I wish to direct that a comprehensive submission be made. Why, in your wisdom, did you include that paragraph? Wasn't this a green light for the pension fund to proceed with the transaction? What motivated you to include that clause? Controlling officer?
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of large amounts, I think you would remember that the Reserve Bank is banker to the banks and government only. And most of the requests actually do come from the banks and sometimes the government. But the control aspect in terms of the movement of large amounts, because the banks will always request for large amounts for their own operations. And some of those operations can actually include some of these transactions. But in terms of the commercial banks, they have an obligation, we call it large suspicious transactions. There is large transactions, and those reports are submitted to FIA, and also the suspicious transactions, they are also submitted to FIA. We are not aware at this moment whether some of these transactions were actually reported as suspicious transactions to FIA. But I think FIA, as you have pointed out, are going to be here, and because these are submitted by the commercial banks to FIA. So this is how it happens. But in terms of the Reserve Bank, we actually deal with the banks themselves and also the government. Why did we include this clause, Chair, on the 23rd December? Let me ask my colleagues who were here in terms of the rationale for putting that particular clause in that letter.
As you're taking that one, you may want to be reminded, anyone who is going to respond, because they were there then, when the board appeared to this committee, they claimed that the letter which you sent on the 14th of November 2025, they only got that on the 17th November 2025. Meaning that that letter may have been backdated, having noted that a few things were not happening as the law requires. So if somebody felt, no, this needs to be backdated. So can you come out very clear, controlling officer, Reserve Bank Governor, that the letter which was issued on the 14th, it is claimed, which was issued on 14th November 2025, it is claimed that it only got to the board on the 17th of November 2025. What occasioned the delay? And who was the responsible officers or officer who delayed such a submission, which defined the course of action in all these transactions that happened thereafter? Controlling officer?
With your permission, I think I'll let my colleagues answer that question.
Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Allow me to take the first limb to your question. The question says, in the letter dated 23rd of December, why did we include a paragraph, the very last paragraph, and allow me to quote, in this regard, the board is urged to reconsider its decision on this matter. Should the board opt to proceed with the transaction, I wish to direct that a comprehensive submission be made to my office, providing a clear basis in terms of viability of the proposed investment and how member funds would be safeguarded. Chair, honorable members, you recall that when our colleague was presenting, it was emphasized that the Registrar of Financial Institutions does not intervene in the decision-making processes of trustees, because the law empowers them to come up with investment decisions. Similarly, in this case, the board can be said were exercising their right. But again, it was also emphasized to say, when we look at our oversight powers, the regulatory space, we can also not just fold our arms when we see that a financial institution is not playing according to the rules. So, Chair, the letter of 14th November was clear. The spirit was halt the process, do not proceed. But again, when you look at the 23rd December letter, Chair, it has, I would say, 5 or so paragraphs. The second paragraph, the regulator is expressing concern to say there are some serious prudential regulatory issues that you should be minded about. Again, the regulator goes on to say, should you proceed, you will be breaching the law. Again, in the next paragraph, Chair, you will note the regulator is bringing to the attention of the trustees the EMJ advisory issues. Again, in the other paragraph, the next paragraph, the second page, on page 2, trustees are called upon to remember their fiduciary duty, because as a fiduciary, they are supposed to act in the best interest of the members. But again, the regulator goes on to say, remember, your pension fund is systemically important to the nation. So, Chair, when we look at the context of this letter, the registrar goes on to say, I would urge you to reconsider your position. But should you opt to proceed, then at least convince me otherwise, because looking at the foregoing paragraphs, I am not convinced that this transaction is viable. And therefore, Chair, to say that, or if it can be argued that this letter in a way gave consent to the trustees, as the regulator would humbly beg to differ. Again, when we look at the rules of interpretation in law, we give words their natural and ordinary meaning. In this case, Chair, what we have read, looking at the context, and again, the intention of the drafter has to be taken into consideration. This letter, what was the intention of the registrar? Stop. But should you proceed, please convince me. I think that was the spirit in which the letter was crafted. Mindful of the fact that, as we keep on emphasizing, the Registrar of Financial Institutions is not there to be making investment decisions for trustees, no. But we are there to provide regulatory oversight, and that's exactly what we're doing, Chair, in this particular case. The second aspect of the question, through you, Chair, and Governor, maybe allow me to pass it on to Sopan. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. I think the issue of the letter, the delayed letter.
Yeah, proceed. Take that one, then you will have two supplementary questions.
Thank you very much, Chair, and the honourable members. We wish to put on record and assure the committee that this letter was not backdated, honourable chairs and honourable members. You will notice, Chair, from the presentation of our colleague in the presentation earlier on by Director Chihana, we actually got the second whistleblowing information on the same date in the afternoon, on the 14th. And we actually hurried and drafted the same letter on the 14th. It was a Friday, if my memory serves me right. It was a Friday afternoon. And honourable members and Chair, you wish to note that the Registrar of Financial Institutions is primarily based in Lilongwe. So the delay to have the letter signed was because it just coincided with a weekend. We take it that probably the registrar at that time may have been engaged with other duties in the late afternoon of a Friday, so that he would sign the letter on a Monday, and the date was not changed. But it was not backdated. It explains, honourable members and Chair, it's also on record that this letter was actually sent to the PSP fund on the same day, on Monday, the 17th, in the afternoon. So just to get the assurance, members, that the letter was not actually backdated, and there was no any intention from the Office of the Registrar, given the gravity of the issues and the alarm that we got on the 14th, to delay this issue. Honourable members and Honourable Chair, our colleague also indicated that actually our intention, our request with the fund board engagement, was that we had requested the meeting on the next day, given the gravity and the seriousness of the matters. And so it was, the meeting was shifted to 19th upon request from the fund that on the 18th, on the next day, they were not available. They would only be available on the 19th. So, honourable members, honourable chair, could be assured from the Office of the Registrar that there was not any kind of foreplay or delay or deliberate frustration within the Office of the Registrar in terms of speed at which this letter was going to be submitted to the fund. With your permission, Chair, I just wanted to put again into context the question that had been raised earlier on by an honourable member from Kabula. I think I got it right. Apologies if I got it wrong. I think the issue of Reserve Bank paying the monies, it is also important to note, honourable members, honourable chair, that interbank transfers, generally they go through the national switch of the RTGS, so they will have these codes, that RBM as a transaction code. It does not necessarily mean that the money came from the RBM. Actually, we have the confirmation from our colleagues in National Payment Systems that the transactions on the 12th and on the 13th, they both came from the FDH Bank. They didn't come from the RBM. I thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you very much, Honourable Members.
Thank you so much, Controlling Officer. Let me make it clear, because we have the TV with us, Parliament TV, which is live. Today, this morning, normally Parliament doesn't sit, but honourable members have sacrificed their time and anything just to make sure that these things are done in a proper way. This afternoon, Parliament will start sitting, and the colleagues from the TV, they will focus on the parliamentary sitting. Then after 5 o'clock, these members have also sacrificed their time. We are having an interface with the Attorney General, as well as the principal officer for the fund after 5 p.m. So I just wanted to make that known. In the event that they have gone off, it's because they are shifting to parliamentary proceeding. But that will not stop. And take note that we cannot be meeting in this room when Parliament is also sitting. So at 2, honour members are supposed to be in Parliament for parliamentary proceedings, because we sit in this committee on behalf of the Speaker. So traditionally, it's not right for us to I just wanted to sit when Parliament is in session. So I just wanted to put that on record to avoid being misquoted. I have seen Mulanje. I had identified the owner of the question, Luntha Chiromoni. But we'll proceed in the manner that after Luntha Chiromoni, we'll go to Zomba City North, Palombe Machemba, Salima Central, in that order. Like I took that, then and the Nkata Bay Central.